Yes.
All right, thank you. Let's bring them in, please. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect that the jury has joined us again, and Investigator Perolina is back on the witness stand. I'll remind you that you're still under oath. And Ms. Pearson, you may resume with the rest of your direct examination.
Ms. Petalina, I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibits 3494, 3496, 3497, 3498, 3500, 3503, and 3504. Thank you. Do you recognize all of those photographs?
Yes.
Do they fairly and accurately represent your observations in the theater?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of all of the photographs I've tendered to the witness.
Is there any objection, Ms. Spengler?
Excuse me, no objection.
All right, without objection, P-TR-3494, 3496, 3498, 3500, 3503, and 3504 are admitted and may be published.
Your Honor, did I also give her 3497? If you could check Ms. Petalina.
You mentioned 3497. I'm sorry. Do you have that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, and so include 3497 in that group. Thank you.
Could I have 3494, please? What are we looking at in this photograph?
This is row 9, seat 14.
3496?
This is impact 9-208.
In row 9, seat 14?
Correct.
3497? What do we see in this photograph?
This is the back of that seat, row 9, seat 14.
And 3498?
And this is impact 9-209.
3500?
This is row 11, seat 7.
And does this show impacts that have been marked previously and then it was revisited and additional impacts were located?
Correct.
3503?
This is going to be row 11, seat 6.
And 3504?
This is a close-up of impact 9-211, which is on the side of that seat.
And can you check, had we previously marked row 9, seat 14, and row 11, seat 6? I believe we'd marked row 11, seat 7. Do you recall?
Can I come down to the model?
Please.
So row 9, seat 14, just row 9. Has not been marked. So what was previously marked was row 9, seat 14. I'm sorry, seat 13. And 14 would be one over to the right.
And was row 11, seat 6 previously marked? Was row 11, seat 6 previously marked?
Row 11, seat 6 was not previously marked, so I will mark that now.
And seat 7 has been marked, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm next going to hand you what have been marked as $35.05, $35.06, $35.07, $35.08, $35.09, $35.10, $35.12, $35.13, $35.15, $35.14, $35.16, and $35.17. Do you recognize all of these photographs?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for admittance of the photographs that I have tendered to the witness.
Is there any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-3505 through 3510 inclusive are admitted and may be published. Similarly, P-TR-3512 through 3517 inclusive are admitted and may be published.
Could I have 3505, please? What seat do we see depicted in this photograph?
This is row 12, seat 8.
3506,
This is impact 9-212.
3507,
This is impact 9-213.
3508,
This is a close-up photograph of that same impact 9-213.
3509,
Okay, we're now moving to row 10, seat 8, looking at impact 9-214.
3510,
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-214.
3512,
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-215, row 10, seat 8.
And does this photograph reflect that a previous impact had been located prior to the time that this one was located?
Correct, 9-61.
3515?
This is a close-up photograph of 9-216.
3513?
This is another photograph of impact 9-215.
3514?
And this is a close-up photograph of 9-216 and 9-217.
3516?
And this is 9-217 again, and 9-218, again, row 10, seat 8.
3517?
This is a close-up photograph of 9-218.
Now, I believe we previously marked row 10, seat 8, but did we mark row 12, seat 8? If you could check, please.
Sure. Okay, so row 12, starting with row 8, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then we're going to go 8 seats over to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it will be this seat here. It was not previously marked.
And is that seat? And did we previously mark row 10, seat 8?
Yes, we did.
Thank you. Next, going to hand you what has been marked as People's Exhibits 3520, 3521, 3522, 3523, 3524, and 3525. Do you recognize all of those photographs?
Yes.
Do they fairly and accurately represent your observations?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of the photographs that I've tendered to the witness.
Any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-3520 through 3525 are admitted and may be published. And
Could I
that's-
have-
That's inclusive. Go ahead.
Could I have 3520, please? What seat are we looking at here?
We're looking at row 11, seat 12.
3521?
This is impact 9-219.
3522?
This is the back of row 11, seat 12.
3523?
This is impact 9-220.
3524?
This is a new seat, row 11, seat 16.
3525?
This is impact 9-221.
And if you could approach the model and see if we have previously marked row 11, seat 12, or row 11, seat 16.
Okay, row 11, starting with 8, 8, 9, 10, 11, seat 12, was not previously marked.
And seat 16?
Was previously marked.
I'm next going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibits 3526, 3527, 3528, 3529, 3530,
Thank you.
Do you recognize all of those photographs?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of the exhibits that I've provided to the witness.
Any objection, Ms. Spengler?
To 3531 under 403, it's cumulative to 3530 as well as due process, but no objection to the other exhibits.
I don't think you mentioned 3531, Ms. Pearson, so was that included in the packet that you just tendered, Investigator Pedolina?
No, Your Honor.
I apologize. No objection.
Okay, without objection, P-TR-3526 through 3530 inclusive are admitted and may be published.
Could I have 3526, please? What seat are we looking at here?
We're looking at row 12, seat 10.
3527,
This is the same seat with impact 9-222.
3528,
This is a close-up photograph of 9-222.
3529,
This is in the area of row 12, seat 16 on the floor.
3530,
And this is a close-up photograph of that impact that you just saw, 9-223.
and if you could approach the model with regard to row 12, seat 10, and see, I don't believe that's one we've marked.
Eight, 9, 10, 11, 12, seat 10.
Yes.
Seat 10 was not previously marked, so I'm going to mark that. And then the other seat was seat 16, so moving...
And that's not actually on the seat, but on the floor, I
Correct.
believe, so we won't mark that one.
Okay.
I'm next going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibits 3532, 3533, 3536, 3537, and 3538.
Thank you.
Do you recognize all of those photographs?
Yes, I do.
Your Honor, I'd move for admittance of the photographs that I've tendered to the witness.
Any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-3532, 3533, and 3536 through 3538 inclusive are admitted and may be published.
Could I have 3532, please? What are we looking at here?
This is row 13, seat 12.
3533,
This is impact 9-224.
3536,
This is row 13, seat 15.
3537,
And this is impact 9-225.
3538,
And impact 9-226 on that same seat, row 13, seat 15.
and could you approach the model and see if we've previously marked row 13, seat 12, or seat 15?
Okay, again, starting with row 8, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This would be seat 12, the 12th row, the 12th seat from left to right.
Seat 15,
Okay. Which would be 3 over from the previously marked seat, and it was not previously marked.
Next, going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibits 3549, 3550, 3551, 3552, and 3553. Do you recognize all of these photographs?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of the photographs that I've tendered to the witness.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-3549 through 3553 inclusive are admitted and may be published.
Could I first have People's Exhibit 3552? What do we see in this photograph?
Okay, this is row 13, seat 3, with impact 9-229.
And 3553.
This is a close-up of that impact 9-229.
And if you could approach the model and see if we've previously marked row 13, seat 3.
Okay, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Third seat from left to right was previously marked.
Could I have 3549, please? Now, where are we in the theater as we're looking at this photograph?
Okay, again, as you were to look at the screen, this would be the left wall. So the adjoining wall, the north wall from Theater 9 to Theater 8. We had previously marked 2 impacts on that wall, and 2 additional impacts were found.
3550?
And this is just a close-up of one of those impacts, 9-227, again on the north wall.
And 3551.
A close-up photograph of impact 9-228.
Now, again, as you were taking photographs of all of the different impacts in the theater, were you also collecting evidence that you came across?
Yes,
Did you mark an item of evidence with placard 124?
I did.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
With what has been marked as People's Exhibits 3477 and 3478 and Exhibit 621. Do you recognize that item and those photographs as depicting the item that you collected in the theater?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibit 621 as well as 3477 and 3478.
Ms. Spengler, do you have any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-3477, 3478, and 621 are admitted and may be published.
Could I have 3477, please? What are we looking at in this photograph?
Okay, in this photograph, we're looking at evidence placard 124, and where this is located is, as you look at the screen, it would be in the southeast corner up by where the screen was originally located, so to the right in the area where the screen was.
3478?
This is a close-up photograph of that item of evidence at 124.
And was this behind the screen? We previously saw photographs of the screen with an impact point in the screen. Was this behind where that area of the screen would have been if it had still been in place?
Yes, it was in the general area of impact 9-201.
And if you could hold up People's Exhibit 621, please. Is that the item depicted in this photograph?
Yes.
I'm next going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 3563, 3567, 3677, 3568, 3565, 3566, 3570, 3571, 3782, 3580, and 3581. Do you recognize all of these photographs?
Yes.
Do they fairly and accurately depict your observations in the theater in July of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of the photographs that I've tendered to the witness.
Any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-3563, 3567, 3677, 3568, 3565, 3566, 3570, 3571, 3782, 3580, and 3581 are admitted and may be published. Did I get all those right, Ms. Pearson?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Could I have 3563, please? And if you could tell us, where are we in, is this Theater 9?
Yes.
And where are we in the theater?
Okay, so earlier we were talking about the north wall, and that was the lower north wall. This is also the north wall, but it's located up in the stadium seating. So again, if you were to look at the screen, it would be the wall located to the left, generally in the area of about row 18.
And this is the wall that connects with Theater 8.
Correct.
3567, please. Are these impacts located on that same railing?
They are.
3677. Now, could you explain what all of the little flags are?
Yes, they were placed there by federal agents to indicate how many holes they observed in the curtain in the area of impact 9-230.
3568.
This is a close-up photograph of the railing that was located right underneath of those flags, so this is still in the upper north wall.
So did 9-230 include the impacts on this wood railing as well as the area with all the flags?
Yes, the federal agents used that number for everything that was in that area.
3565, please. And where is this?
This is row 13, seat 3.
3566. And
This is a close-up of that photograph, and this is in Theater 9, impact 231.
is that on the floor behind the seat?
Yes.
3570. What do we see in this photograph?
This was an additional impact found in the lower north wall, so again, that left wall, the adjoining wall to Theater 8, which is impact 9-32.
3571.
This is a close-up photograph of impact 9-232.
Now, what do we see in the wall? What is that?
What you're seeing in that impact is a trajectory rod that was placed there by the agents.
Were some of the impacts located later as they had already started placing trajectory rods?
Yes.
3782.
This is an overall photograph of that north wall again, so that lower north wall that we've been talking about, the adjoining wall with additional impacts.
3580.
This is an evidence item that I located inside of Theater 8. It was placard 127.
And this is actually in Theater 8?
It is.
Okay. And 3581.
This is a close-up photograph of that item of evidence that was found in Theater 8.
And where in Theater 8 is this?
Okay, in Theater 8, this was located in the south or the right hallway. There was a similar layout to Theater 9 as Theater 8 had a similar layout. So as one looks at the screen, it would be the hallway located to the right that led back out to the entrance.
I'm next going to hand you what's been marked as people's exhibits. As People's Exhibits 3608, 3612, 3613, 3616, and 3617. Is And I'm also going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibits 3783, 3784, 3786, and 3787. And next, I'm going to hand you two additional photographs, 3797 and 3799. Do you recognize all of those photographs?
I do.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of all the photographs that I've tendered to the witness. Oh, in addition, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I found one more. I'm sorry, this is so scattered. 3604.
Okay.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 3604, 3608, 3612, 3613, 3616, 3617, 3799, 3797, 3783, 3784, 3786, and 3787.
Did you want to lay foundation for 3604? I think you just gave it to her.
Do you recognize that photograph as well?
I do.
And 3787. So,
Any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-3604, 3608, 3612, 3613, 3616, 3617, 3783, 3784, 3786, 3787, 3797, and 3799 are admitted and may be published.
could I have 3604, please? What are we looking at in this photograph?
We're looking at row 11, seat 14.
And can you explain the rods that we see in this photograph?
Yes, they're the same type of rods I previously talked about, which are trajectory rods that were placed there by agents from the FBI.
Can you tell by looking at this photograph, were there impacts that were located earlier in the process of looking and then impacts that were located later in the process?
Yes, based on the sequential numbering system that we used, the earlier impacts were in the hundreds, and there's a new impact in the upper left side of the chair if you're looking at the chair, and that would be impact 9-235.
Could I have 3608, please?
This is a photograph of 9-234 and 9-235.
3612, please?
This is row 13, seat 13, impact 9-236.
3613, please?
This is row 14, seat 11, showing an impact previously marked and a new impact, which is impact 9-237.
And I believe row 11, seat 14, and this last one were previously marked. Was row 13, seat 13 marked previously?
I need to check. Okay. Row 13, again, if we start with row 8, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and then I'll move 13 seats over to the right. And it was not previously marked.
If you could also check and ensure that row 11, seat 14, and row 14, seat 11.
The first one was row 11, seat 14. That was previously marked.
And I believe the other photograph is row 14, seat 11.
Row 14, seat 11 was also previously marked.
Thank you. Could I have 3613, please? I'm sorry, 3616? Where is this in the theater?
Okay, this is the west wall, so this is the back wall. So if you were looking at the screen in the theater, it would be the wall in back of you, above the exit, which was located in the northwest corner.
3617?
This is a close-up of that impact, 9-238.
Could I have 3797, please?
Okay, and this is a close-up of that impact when the parts of the wall were starting to be removed. And we did this to see if we could recover additional evidence.
So there was a curtain on top of this originally,
Correct.
and was that removed?
Yes.
3799? What are we looking at in this photograph?
As we began to cut into the wall to see if we could recover additional evidence, we observed a second hole.
3783?
Okay, in this photograph, we're now back on the lower north wall. So again, looking at the screen, it's that adjoining wall to Theater 8 with one additional impact, which would be 9-239.
3784?
This is a close-up of that impact on the lower north wall, right underneath of that railing.
3786?
Okay, we're now going back to that west wall, where in the area where 9-238 was located, and this was a second impact, which was 9-240.
And the rod that we see, what is that?
That again is the trajectory rod with the laser placed on the end, placed there by the FBI.
3787?
This is a close-up of that impact, 9-240 in the west wall.
Once you had marked all of the impacts in the theater, were you still present as they began to do the shooting incident reconstruction?
Yes.
Were they marking the bullet trajectory with some of the rods that we've seen in some of the photographs?
Yes.
After all of that had been completed, did you then begin to collect evidence from some of these impacts in the various chairs and walls and items in the theater?
Yes.
Why did you have to wait until after all of those things were done first?
So on Friday, the 8th day that I was on scene, which was July 27th, the FBI had finished up their trajectory, and the FBI had also finished up their measurements with the total station. That needed to be completed before we started to cut apart the seats to collect additional items of evidence.
And if I can have a second. I'm going to hand you what has been marked as People's Exhibits 596, or 595, 596, 597, 598, 599, 600, 601, 602, 603, and 604.
Thank you.
Do you recognize all of those items?
Yes.
Are those items that you collected in the theater follow from the holes and impacts that you photographed in the theater?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 595 through 604 inclusive.
Any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-595 through 604 inclusive are admitted.
And if you could first show us 595 and then explain where that's from, and if I could have 3473 that has been previously admitted up. Do you recognize People's Exhibit 595?
Yes.
And what is it?
It is from Impact 9-199, which is a projectile.
Could you look at 596, please? And could I have 3096 up? What is 596?
It's a fragment that was recovered from Impact 9-6.
Could you also look at 598 in that group? And what is Exhibit 598?
These were shot pellets that were removed from Impact 9-6.
If you could look at 597, please. And if I could have 3099. And if you could show us what 597 is.
This is a shot pellet that was removed from Impact 9-5.
You could look at 599, please. And if I could have 3225.
Okay, this is a fragment that was recovered from Impact 9-7-6.
And if you could look at 600, please. And if I could have 3186.
This was a fragment recovered from Impact 9-56.
If you could look at 601, please. And if I could have 3177. What is 601?
This is a fragment recovered from Impact 9-50.
And 602?
This is also a fragment collected from the same Impact 9-50.
Could I have would you look at 603, please, and could I have 3160?
This is a fragment collected from Impact 9-37.
If you'd look at 604, and could I have 3326?
This is another fragment collected from Impact 9-140.
I'm next going to hand you what have been marked as People's Exhibits 605, 606, 607, 608, 609, 610, 611, 612, 613, and 614. Do you recognize all of those items as items that you collected in the theater in July of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 605 through 614 inclusive.
Any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-605 through 614 inclusive are admitted.
Would you look at 605, please, and could I have 3151, please? What is 605?
These are fragments that were collected from Impact 9-35.
Now, on some of these, do we also see blue tape in addition to red tape?
Yes, we do.
What does the blue tape signify?
The blue tape signifies a tape that was placed there by the Colorado Bureau of Investigation.
Would you look at 606, please? And could I have 3298? What are we looking at?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
These are fragments collected from Impact 9-120.
If you would look at 607, and could I have 3359?
This is a shot pellet collected from Impact 9-159.
You'd look at 608, and could I have 3336?
These are fragments collected from Impact 9-146.
And 609, if you'd look at that, and could I have 3507?
These are fragments collected from Impact 9-213.
If you'd look at 610, and could I have 3528?
Okay, this is a projectile that was collected from Impact 9-222.
You'd look at 611, and could I have 3318?
This was a fragment collected from Impact 9-133.
You'd look at 612, and could I have 3533?
These are pellets collected from Impact 9-224.
If you'd look at 613, and could I have 3386?
These are fragments collected from Impact 9-174.
And if you'd look at 614, and could I have 3406?
These are fragments collected from Impact 9-187 in that lower north wall.
And again, the north wall is which wall in the theater?
If you're looking at the screen, it would be the wall to the left, which is the adjoining wall to Theater 8.
Thank you. I'm next going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibits 615, 616, 617, and 618. Do you recognize the exhibits that I've handed you?
Yes.
These items you collected in the theater?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admission of People's Exhibits 615 through 618 inclusive.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, P-TR-615 through 618 inclusive are admitted.
And if you could show us 615, and could I have 3406 up, please?
This is a fragment collected from Impact 9-188, again that lower north wall, the adjoining wall to Theater 8.
If you'd look at 616, and could I have 3358?
These are pellets collected from impact 9-158.
If you'd look at 617, and could I have 3279?
These are pellets collected from impact 110.
And if you'd look at 618, and could I have 3523?
This is a fragment collected from impact 9-220.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, as part of taking apart seats to collect pellets from them, were you also involved in collecting the theater seats that were taken out of the theater?
Yes.
I'm going to hand you an exhibit that has 642, 643, and 644 on it, but right now I'm just going to ask you about People's Exhibit 644. We'll address the other two exhibits that are attached to this later, but turning first specifically to 644, do you recognize that item?
Yes.
And what is it?
These are fragments that were collected from row 8, seat 18 in theater 9.
And is that one of the seats that was collected?
Yes, it was.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admission of People's Exhibit 644.
Any objection?
644.
All right, it is admitted. That's P-TR-664, and it's admitted without objection.
It's 644, Your Honor?
Excuse me, 644, that's what I meant to say. Thank you.
Now, did you also collect pieces of wall out of the theater that had had impacts located in them?
Yes.
And we're going to show you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 632. And I'm going to ask to put some black plastic sheeting on the floor because it's drywall and it's crumbling.
Okay.
If you could step down with the handheld mic. And is there a scissors in the drawer here?
Ms. Pearson, are you moving?
I will be, Your Honor, yes.
All right, is there going to be any objection?
No.
Yes, Your Honor, the people are moving the admission of People's Exhibit 632.
Okay, P-32 is admitted
And I'm going to ask you to cut the plastic off of that. We're going to need to find a pair of scissors to do that so that we can see what is located on that. And if I could also have photograph 3677 up.
Thank you.
The piece that we're looking at here, People's Exhibit 632, is this from the area that photograph 3677 shows?
Correct. This was the upper north wall, so the area where impact 9-230 was labeled.
We'll repackage this in some clear plastic to keep it clean for the jury after.
There was actually two sections to this wall because of where we had to cut it. It was cut on a fold. So this would be the first part of the wall.
What can we see in this piece?
Okay, so there was several pellets removed from this piece of the upper north wall. Investigator Carol and I collected 5 additional pellets from this section. So this is also going to be where impact 9-30 was. This is the lower portion of the wall that we collected. And investigator Carol and I recovered an additional 20 pellets out of this area.
I'm also going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 3807. Do you recognize that photograph
I do.
and what it depicts?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admission of People's 3807.
Any objection?
No objection.
Okay, it is admitted without objection. That's P-TR-3807.
And could I publish it, Your Honor?
Yes, you may.
Could I have 3807 up, please? What are we looking at in this photograph?
Okay, so this is the area where you originally saw those orange flags. This is impact, or the area of impact 9-30. And the 2 walls that we just removed from the evidence bag are the 2 walls that were cut from this area. The first portion of the wall, the smaller portion, was the top portion, and the second part that I cut out was the lower portion.
I'm next going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 633.
to me up here? Okay.
Do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes.
Is that an item that you collected from the theater in July of 2012?
Yes.
You're an argument for the admission of People's Exhibit 633?
Any objection? No. Without objection, P-TR-633 is admitted.
And if I could have People's 33, let me see, make sure here. 3393 up, please. So, is what I've handed you depicted in this photograph?
Yes.
Does it include impact 9-178?
Correct. 9-178, which was in that west railing in the back of the theater.
Now, in this exhibit, are there also pieces that came from the north wall, 9-230?
Correct. The railing also from impact 9-230.
And is 9-230 also where the drywall, was that impact in the drywall that we've just seen?
Yes.
And if we could take this one down and open it up, please. And if we could put these together, I'll hold them up and so that we can show that. Are these two pieces part of that same wall, 9-230?
Yes.
And this wall section was where? Or this railing section?
This was the railing from the upper north wall.
And 9-178?
9-178 was that railing located in the back of the theater or to the west wall.
If you could also show this side view there of what we see. I am going to hand you an exhibit that includes 639 and 640. Do you recognize these items?
Yes.
Are these items that you collected in the theater in July of 2012?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibits 639 and 640.
Any objection?
You want to move your approach on that exhibit?
Yes. right, the exhibits P-TR-639 and 640 are admitted without objection, but with the understanding that we have at the bench.
Turning first to People's Exhibit 640, what is that?
People's Exhibit 640 are the pellets that were collected from that upper north wall, the lower portion of it.
And if I could have 3677, please. Do the flags represent where the area was that those pellets were collected?
Yes.
Thank you. I won't ask you about the other exhibit quite yet. Could I have them? 635. Do you recognize this item?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibit 635.
Is there any objection?
Objection.
Without objection, P-TR-635 is admitted.
What is People's Exhibit 635?
This was the pole located inside of Theater 9 with impact 9-3 on the front and 9-4 on the back.
And if I could have photograph 3093 up. Is this the impact that we're talking about that is in this pole?
Yes.
Where was this collected in the theater?
Theater 9, it was the pole that was located right before seat 8, so in front of the stadium seating.
And People's Exhibit 639 that we just previously admitted? If you can look at that, please, that you have in front of you there. On the envelope with 640.
Correct?
Do you recognize that item?
Yes.
And is that connected in some way to Exhibit 635?
It is not.
Are these in fact the fragments from 9-3 and 9-4?
People's Exhibit 639 are the fragments that were collected from impact 9-178.
And 9 dash, all right, thank you. And 9-178 was the impact in the back wall of the theater?
Correct. 9-178 was the railing that I just showed you all from the west wall, which is the back wall of the theater.
And I'll take that from you. I'm going to hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 636. And People's Exhibit 637. Do you recognize both of these items?
Yes.
Are they items that you collected in the theater?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibit 636 and 637.
Is there any objection?
No.
Without objection, P-TR-636 and 637 are admitted.
If you could show us, please, what 636 is? What is that?
This is a piece of the curtain, the purple curtain that was located at impact 9-230, that upper north wall.
And if you could look at Exhibit 637, please? And what are those?
These are fragments from impact 9-178, that west railing, that were removed on scene.
And in fact, going back to People's Exhibit 639, that you had indicated appeared to be from 9-178, is it in fact from 9-3 and 9-4 in the poll?
The envelope is marked with impact 9-178, so I do not recall.
Is that reflected in your report somewhere?
I would have to refresh my memory.
Okay, we'll do that in a bit.
Okay.
If you could look at Exhibit 642, which is attached to the bag that had 644 on it. I think that's correct. Which will be small. Do you have the one there that still has 3 small things with 644?
It could be behind you. There's
Oh,
one.
thank you, Your Honor.
That's all right.
I was saving this one. 644.
If you could, 644 we've previously admitted. If you could look at 642.
Okay.
Do you recognize item 642 as an item that you collected in the theater?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibit 642.
Any objection, Ms. Spengler?
No.
Without objection, P-TR-642 is admitted.
What is 642?
These were the 5 pellets that were removed from that area of 9-230.
And I'm going to now hand you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 647. I'm going to show you, if you could come and look at what has been marked as People's Exhibit 647. And do you recognize this item?
Yes.
Is this an item that you collected in the theater?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admittance of People's Exhibit 647.
Any objection?
No.
Without objection, P-TR-647 is admitted.
To unwrap this one so we can see what it is. What are we looking at in this?
These are impacts 187, 188, 227, and 228. That was the lower north wall, the adjoining wall to Theater 8.
And is this 3 thicknesses of drywall?
Yes.
And if I could have up 3549, please. Is this what, the piece of wall that we were just looking at?
Correct. This is the lower north wall with those 4 impacts I just showed you on the exhibit.
Now, these were, let's see, then in addition in Theater 9, did you also collect some additional fragments that came from some of these items?
Yes.
I think actually we've done all of the ones from Theater 9. After you completed all of your work in Theater 9, did you begin to document the impacts that were in Theater 8?
Yes, during the week while I was on scene, we began to document the holes or impacts inside of Theater 8.
Ms. Pearson, before we move on to that area, let's go ahead and take our lunch break at this time, okay?
Okay.
All right. Members of the jury, it's a few minutes after 12. We're going to go ahead and take our lunch break. Please remember that all the advisements apply during the lunch break. Enjoy your lunch. I think it's supposed to be up to 78 today out there, so I don't know if you'll get a chance to go out, but I'll see you back here in an hour and a half, okay? Thank you. The record should reflect that the jury has exited the courtroom. Please be seated, everyone. Anything we need to talk about at this time on behalf of the people, Ms. Tish McGuire?
Your Honor, we are wondering if we could ask the court's indulgence. We have 2 witnesses who flew in and are flying out today. I'm wondering if there's any way we could put them on after lunch and interrupt Ms. Padalina's testimony for that purpose and then put her back on after those witnesses so they can make sure to make their flights today.
Is Investigator Padalina available to do that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Does the defense have any objection to that?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. Anything on behalf of the defense? No. Okay. I'll see you after lunch. Thank you. The court will be in recess.